So my boss just texted me asking if I could host his wife, toddler, and dog for a week. I stared at my phone for a solid 30 seconds, thinking this had to be a joke, maybe a prank, but no, it was real. He actually asked me, his subordinate, to house his entire family while he was presumably off on some work trip. And then he added as an afterthought that if that didn't work, he could ask the company to pay for his accommodations. Like I was some sort of backup plan. I need to back up because this didn't come out of nowhere. This is the result of years of watching this guy, let's call him Bob, get handed everything while I got nothing but more work and less respect. I work at a mid-sized company where the CEO, who I honestly call Dick in my head because that's what he is, has a massive hard-on for the whole family man image. When Bob and his wife had a kid, she became a stay-at-home mom. The CEO thought that was the most admirable thing in the world. He promoted Bob on the spot. Never mind that Bob started showing up later and later to the office, missing more and more work, and when he was actually there, he was often sleeping at his desk. That didn't matter. Bob was a good dad, so he got rewarded. I, on the other hand, am a woman. I had a baby a few years ago, and instead of a promotion, I got silently demoted. My title didn't change, but my responsibilities got shifted around, my input stopped being valued, and my raises dried up completely. It's been 4 years since I got a raise. 4. And when I tried to talk to Dick about it, he acted like a spoiled older child who just got a new baby sibling. That's a whole other story, but trust me, the double standard is loud. So about a year ago, Bob and his family had to move across the country due to a family emergency. Another promotion happened as soon as they settled. He went from being one of my subordinates to being at my level. And then a couple months ago, he got promoted again to the highest level he can reach. Now he outranks me. That's when the text came. The text was short and casual. He said something like, "Hey, my wife and toddler and dog need a place to stay for a week in January. Can you host them? If not, I can ask the company to pay for a hotel." The audacity, the sheer mind-boggling audacity. I haven't gotten a raise in 4 years. I got demoted for having a baby, and this guy, who sleeps at his desk and gets promoted for being a dad, asked me to play host to his family. I was gobsmacked, utterly gobsmacked. I didn't respond. I just closed the message and went to take an aspirin because I had a meeting with Dick in an hour and I knew without a doubt he would mention it. Bob probably already talked to him. Dick loves Bob. Bob is his golden boy. And I'm just the mother figure who keeps the office running while getting nothing. The meeting happened. Dick sat me down and said, "So Bob mentioned his family needs a place. I think it would be a great opportunity for you to show you're a team player." I wanted to laugh. I wanted to scream. Instead, I just nodded and said I'd think about it. But inside, I was already drafting my resignation letter in my head. I posted about this on Reddit because I needed to know if I was crazy for being this angry. The comments were split. Some said I was underreacting, that I should go to HR or just say no. Others said it was in bad taste but not illegal and HR wouldn't do anything. A few people pointed out the obvious double standard. Bob is a good dad, so he gets promoted. I'm a mom, so I get demoted. Classic workplace misogyny. But the one that really got me was a comment that said, "This is the problem with staying in toxic jobs too long. You get habituated to the chaos and your normal meter breaks. OOP is severely underreacting." And another one, yep, just another crazy woman on the rag. I don't know how many of my husband's friends have said they divorced because their wives were crazy. Last year, one of his friends died, found out he was a cheating pose. So yeah, that excuse is often thrown around. That hit hard because it's exactly what I'm afraid of. Any reaction I have will be dismissed as me being emotional or hormonal. I haven't made a decision yet, but I'm leaning towards no, just a simple no, no explanation, no compromise. Because the truth is, I don't owe Bob or Dick anything. I've given this company years of my life and all I've gotten is a silent demotion and a request to be a free hotel. That's not a team player, that's a doormat. I don't know what's going to happen next. But I do know this, I'm not hosting anyone. And if that costs me my job, maybe that's a sign I should have left a long time ago. That story got a lot of attention, but it's not the only workplace drama I've dealt with. There was another situation a while back involving a coworker and his wife. That one was a different kind of uncomfortable. I'm a 25-year-old woman and I have a coworker named Connor. He's about 50, married with kids. We work at the same university and we got close because we have a lot of mutual friends from our old jobs. At our new place, we bond over hating the same people. We vent, we complain, we laugh, that's it. We don't hang out outside of work. We don't text after hours. I ask about his wife and kids at least once a week just to be polite. There is zero flirting. Zero. But apparently his wife saw it differently. The wife found me at my desk one afternoon. I didn't even know who she was at first. She just walked up to me, this woman I'd never seen before, and asked if she could have a word. I said sure, thinking maybe she was from another department or something. Then she dropped it. She told me to stop following her husband around. She said everyone could see what was going on and I knew it too. I was completely shocked. I had no idea who she was until it clicked. Connor's wife. I'd seen pictures on his desk but never in person. I just stood there stammering and finally managed to say I was sorry. I didn't even know what I was apologizing for. Apparently I'd been on her radar for a while. My coworker Kara told me later that Connor's wife had called her a few weeks earlier asking about me. Kara said she told her straight up that there was nothing to worry about, that Connor and I didn't even like each other like that. Which is true, we just vent, we complain about the same people, it's therapeutic, not romantic. Kara tried to reassure me. She said Connor's wife was mentally unstable and whatever problems were going on in their marriage had nothing to do with me, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. The way she looked at me like I was the enemy. Like I was trying to steal her husband right out from under her. I went to HR, I didn't want to make a big deal but I needed to cover myself. I told the HR rep what happened but I didn't give a name at first, she figured it out anyway. She said she'd seen Connor and me talking together frequently and she understood it was just conversation. But she also told me they could have the wife banned from the campus if I wanted. I said no. I didn't want to embarrass Connor. He's a good guy and I figured this would blow over. But it didn't blow over. I started avoiding Connor like the plague. I'd see him hanging around my area of work but I'd duck into another room or pretend to be on the phone. I didn't know what to say to him. Kara said he was really embarrassed about the whole thing. He knew his wife was unstable and he felt terrible that she dragged me into it. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. I read the comments on my Reddit post and a lot of people pointed out that these kinds of accusations can ruin your career, especially in a university setting. They said I needed to file a formal complaint and distance myself completely, but I didn't want to make waves. I just wanted to do my job and go home. A few people dug into my post history and found old posts about crushes on unavailable men. They said I seemed like the type who craved attention from taken guys. That stung because it wasn't true. I never had any feelings for Connor, I just liked having a work buddy. But the comments made me wonder if I was blind to something I was doing wrong. I still don't know how to handle this. I'm keeping my distance, but it feels like walking on eggshells. Every time I see Connor's wife's face in my mind, I get a knot in my stomach. I never asked for this drama. I just wanted to vent about work and move on with my life. That situation eventually died down, but it left a bad taste in my mouth. And then came the next workplace nightmare, which was even more disturbing. I have a condition called chronic pain. It's hard to explain to people who don't live with it, but I'll try. Imagine your baseline pain is at a 6 out of 10 every single day. Most people walk around at a 1 or 2, they don't think about it. But for me, it's like I've pulled a muscle and there's a constant ache. Some days I'm higher, some days I'm lower. On good days, I might hit a 4, which is a blessing. I have canes that I use when the pain gets to a 7 or above. I also have a handicap placard for my car and I've filed all the necessary paperwork with my job for accommodations. I don't use them often, but they're there if I need them. So when I got moved to a new location closer to home, I was excited. My new boss, Amy, is great. She's understanding and supportive. My colleague Casey and I get along okay, but we're in the same position, assistant coordinators. Casey has been gunning for a promotion for a long time. I don't want one. My current job is part-time and I already have a full-time job. I do this to pad my savings and keep busy. It helps with my anxiety, but Casey saw me as a threat. I could tell from the way she looked at me when I came in, like I was stealing something from her. She started making passive-aggressive comments about my accommodations, about my handicap placard, about the days I used my cane. I tried to ignore it. I thought if I just did my job and kept my head down, she'd get over it. I was wrong. One afternoon, Amy called me into her office. She looked uncomfortable. She said Casey had come to her with a complaint. Apparently, Casey had been following me outside of work. She had taken video of me walking into a grocery store without my cane. She showed the video to Amy and claimed I was faking my disability. I couldn't believe it. I stood there stunned. Casey had actually stalked me, recorded me, and then used that footage to try to get me in trouble, all because she wanted a promotion and saw me as a rival. Amy was furious. She told me she didn't believe Casey for a second, but she had to follow procedure. She said she'd report Casey to HR. I felt sick. Not just because of the invasion of privacy, but because this was the kind of accusation that can follow you. Even if it's disproven, people remember. I posted about it on Reddit and the comments were brutal. Some people said it would get worse before it got better. Others pointed out that I'm black, I live in Texas, and I'm disabled, a triple threat for getting dismissed by authorities. A few said the police would barely even take my report seriously. They were probably right. I filed a police report anyway. I went to the station and explained the whole situation. The officer looked at me like I was wasting his time. He said something about office politics and suggested I take it up with HR. He didn't even write down half of what I said. Casey's behavior didn't stop after the report. She started spreading rumors around the office. She told people I was using my disability to get special treatment. She said I was a fraud. A few people believed her. I could see them looking at me differently with suspicion instead of sympathy. I'm still working there. I'm still dealing with the pain, and now I'm dealing with the stares and whispers. Amy has my back, but she can't control what people think. Casey is still there, still gunning for that promotion. And every time I see her, I feel that knot in my stomach again. I don't know how this will end. Maybe she'll get what she wants and leave me alone, or maybe she'll keep pushing until I break. Either way, I'm not going to let her win. I've been through too much to let some petty jealousy destroy my life. Sometimes I think about all the stories I've shared online, all the workplace drama I've been through. It's exhausting, but at least writing it out helps. It reminds me that I'm not crazy, I'm not overreacting. I'm just trying to survive in a world that doesn't always believe me. But that wasn't the worst workplace request I ever got. The next one came from a guy who outranked me and it was so absurd I almost laughed in his face. I'll call him Bob, and the CEO I'll call him Dick because he is one. I'd been working at this company for years. I had a solid reputation, a track record of hitting deadlines, and I'd never asked for special treatment. But when I had a baby, everything changed. Dick suddenly treated me like I was unreliable. He silently demoted me, no official change, just a shift in responsibilities. Meanwhile, Bob was the golden boy. When Bob's wife had a child, she became a SAHM. Dick found that so admirable he promoted Bob. Never mind that Bob started showing up late, taking long lunches and sometimes sleeping at his desk. He was a family man, so he deserved it, I guess. About a year ago, Bob and his family had to move across the country for a family emergency. Another promotion followed as soon as they settled. He went from being under me in the hierarchy to being at my level, and then a couple months ago he got promoted again. Now he outranks me. So imagine my surprise when I get a text from Bob one afternoon in early December. "Hey, we're coming back to town for a week in January. My wife, toddler, and dog need a place to stay. Can they crash at your house?" I stared at my phone. He didn't even ask if it was okay. He just assumed I'd say yes. Then he added almost as an afterthought, "If that doesn't work, I can ask the company to pay for my accommodations." Gobsmacked. I was utterly gobsmacked. My dude, I haven't gotten a raise in 4 years. I got silently demoted for having a baby, checks notes having a baby while you get praised for being a good dad. And now you want me to host your whole family? Get the absolute fuck out of here. I didn't reply. I just took a deep breath and went to my meeting with Dick knowing he'd bring it up. And he did. The meeting was about a new project, but 5 minutes in Dick said, "So Bob mentioned he might need your help with housing. That would be really great of you to step up." I kept my mouth shut. I nodded, but inside I was boiling. I went home and wrote a rant on Reddit, mostly just to vent. I didn't expect much, but the comments came flooding in. Most people told me I was underreacting. They said I needed to go to HR, start sending out resumes, and not let myself be used. A few people made sarcastic comments about me being too emotional, probably on my period. Classic. One commenter said, "This is the problem with staying in toxic jobs too long. You get habituated to the chaos and your normal meter breaks." They were right. I had been so used to being the reliable one, the one who never complained, that I forgot I had the right to say no. So I did. The next day I sent Bob a polite but firm message. "I'm not able to host your family. I hope you find something that works." He didn't reply, but Dick called me into his office later that week. He said Bob was disappointed and that it was a bad look for me to refuse a colleague in need. I told Dick I had my own family and my own space and I wasn't a hotel. He didn't like that. He said Bob had done a lot for the company and I should be more supportive. That's when I started looking for a new job. I updated my resume, reached out to old contacts, and started interviewing. It took 3 months, but I landed a position at a different company with a better title and a 20% raise. When I put in my 2 weeks notice, Dick acted shocked. He said he thought I was happy there. I just smiled and said, "I found a place that respects my time and my boundaries." On my last day, Bob came by my desk. He looked uncomfortable. He apologized for putting me in that position. He said his wife had been dealing with some health issues and he was desperate. I appreciated the apology, but I told him he should have asked, not assumed. He nodded and walked away. I never looked back. Honestly, leaving that toxic place was the best thing I ever did. My new boss actually asks before making assumptions. My coworkers treat me like a human being, and I don't have to worry about being someone's unpaid innkeeper ever again. I still think about that text sometimes. How easy it would have been to say yes to keep the peace, but saying no changed everything. Sometimes you have to let your normal meter reset. But that wasn't the only time a coworker's spouse made things weird. Another time, I was the one being accused of something I never did. I was 25, working at a university, and I had a work friend named Connor. He was about 50, married with kids, and we got along because we'd both come from the same department at a different school. We had the same inside jokes, hated the same toxic people, and never took things too seriously, but it was strictly work-based. We never hung out after hours, never texted on weekends, and I made a point of asking about his wife and kids every week. He mentioned them first half the time. I thought that was normal. I thought I was just being a friendly colleague. Then one afternoon, I was walking back from the break room when a woman I'd never seen before stepped right into my path. She was maybe 45, well-dressed, but her eyes were hard. She said, "You need to stop following my husband around. Everyone can see what's going on and you know it." I froze. I had no idea who she was. Then it clicked. This was Connor's wife. I stammered something like, "I'm sorry, I don't know what you mean." She just stared at me, then turned and walked away. I stood there in the hallway, my heart pounding. I felt sick. I went straight to my desk and tried to work, but I couldn't focus. A coworker named Kara came over. She'd seen the whole thing. She told me Connor's wife had actually called her a few weeks earlier asking about me. Kara said she told her there was nothing to worry about, that Connor and I were just friends. She said she's mentally unstable. Whatever's going on in their marriage is not your problem. But that didn't make me feel better. I went to HR. I told the HR rep what happened, but I didn't name names at first. I said I didn't want anything done yet. She already knew. She said she'd seen Connor and me talking a lot. She assured me it looked innocent, but she offered to have the wife banned from campus. I said no, I didn't want to embarrass Connor. I avoided him after that. I stopped going to the areas near his desk. I took different routes to the bathroom. Cara said Connor was really embarrassed. He tried to approach me once near the coffee station, but I just nodded and walked away. I didn't know what to say. I posted about it on Reddit, mostly to vent. The comments were mixed. Some people said I was underreacting, that those accusations could ruin my career. Others pointed out that I had posted before about having a crush on a male friend who wasn't single, so maybe I wasn't as innocent as I claimed. I deleted that old post. I didn't want to think about it. I never talked to Connor again, not properly. A month later, he transferred to a different department. I heard through the grapevine that his wife had been making scenes at his office for years, accusing every woman who so much as laughed at his jokes. I wasn't the first. I wasn't the last. But that experience changed how I interact with male coworkers. Now I keep conversations short. I don't ask about their families unless they bring it up first. I don't laugh too loud. It's exhausting, but it's safer. They say you shouldn't let one bad experience dictate your behavior. But when someone's spouse corners you in a hallway and accuses you of something that never happened, you remember it. You remember the knot in your stomach, the way your hands shook, and you learn to protect yourself. I still work at the university. Connor's not around anymore. I don't know if his marriage got better or worse. I don't want to know. I just hope I never run into his wife again. Then there was the time a coworker decided I wasn't really disabled. That one still makes my blood boil. I've got chronic pain, not the kind you can see, not the kind that makes you limp every day, but the kind that lives in your bones like a bad roommate who never leaves. On a scale of 1 to 10, normal people walk around at a 2 or 3. I live at a 6. That's like having a pulled muscle in your back all the time. You can still move, but you feel it with every step. On good days I'm a 4 and I treasure those. On bad days I'm a 7 or higher, and that's when I break out my canes. I have a handicap placard. I have paperwork filed with my job for accommodations. I do everything by the book because I have to. I work 2 jobs, one full-time, one part-time, to pad my savings and keep my mind busy. The part-time job is at a location close to home and I love the team there. My boss Amy is great. My coworker Casey though. We got along okay, but we were both assistant coordinators, and Casey wanted the promotion to full-time coordinator so bad she could taste it. I was pretty open that I didn't want that promotion. I already had a full-time job and this one was just extra cash and something to do. It helped with my anxiety. But Casey assumed that because I didn't want the promotion, I was a threat. She thought Amy would see me as competition anyway, and she was watching me. I didn't know that at first. The first sign was when Casey started asking weird questions about my doctor's appointments. "Oh, you're leaving early again? Is it your back?" I'd just nod, but she'd give me this look. Like she was filing it away. Then one day I took my car to the shop, nothing serious, just an oil change and a tire rotation. I had my handicap placard hanging from the rearview mirror, same as always. I wasn't using a cane that day because I was having a rare 4-day. I felt fine. I walked into the garage normally, sat in the waiting room, scrolled my phone, paid, and drove home. No big deal. 2 days later, Amy called me into her office. She looked uncomfortable. "I need to tell you something," she said. "Casey came to me with a video. She followed you after work to the garage. She recorded you walking into the shop without a cane and she's claiming you're faking your disability." I felt like the air got sucked out of the room. "What?" She said she wanted to prove that you don't need accommodations. She said you're just pretending to get sympathy and easier shifts. Amy looked like she wanted to throw up. I told her that's not appropriate, but she already showed the video to a few other people. I didn't scream. I just sat there, my hands gripping the armrests. "I had a 4-day, I said. "I don't use my cane on a 4-day. That doesn't mean I'm not disabled." Amy nodded. "I know, I believe you, but I have to document this because she went to HR before coming to me." HR called me in. They asked to see my medical documentation. I handed them everything, including the letter from my specialist that clearly stated my condition and the recommendations for intermittent use of mobility aids. They said they'd launch an investigation. I thought, okay, this will be cleared up in a week, but Casey didn't stop. She started telling other coworkers that I was a fraud. People looked at me differently. Some of them avoided me. One woman from accounting asked me point blank, "So do you have a real condition or is it just anxiety?" I told her to talk to HR. The investigation dragged on. HR interviewed me twice. They interviewed Casey. They interviewed Amy. They asked for my medical records again. I had to take time off work just to deal with it. Meanwhile, I found out that Casey had been following me for weeks. She deparked near my apartment. She'd taken photos of me carrying groceries. She'd recorded me walking to the mailbox, all of it without my knowledge or consent. She created a little collection of evidence showing me moving without visible pain. And yes, some of those videos showed me walking normally. That's the whole point. On a good day, I can walk. On a good day, I can carry a bag. That doesn't mean I'm not in pain. It just means I've learned to smile through it. HR came back with a decision. They said the evidence didn't prove I was faking, but they couldn't prove Casey was stalking me either. They gave her a written warning for unprofessional conduct. That was it, a slap on the wrist. I was furious. I went to the police. I explained that a coworker had been following me, recording me, and distributing that footage to others. The officer looked at me, then at my handicap placard and said, "She didn't post it online, right? She just showed it at work. That's a workplace issue, not a criminal one." I wanted to scream. I didn't, I just thanked him and left. I filed a complaint with the state disability office. I hired a lawyer. I sent a letter to the CEO of the company. I told them that if they didn't take this seriously, I would sue. I didn't want to sue, I just wanted to be left alone. But I wasn't going to be bullied. The CEO finally got involved. Casey was suspended without pay for 2 weeks. She had to attend a training on disability awareness, and they moved her to a different location. But the damage was done. I couldn't walk into the break room without feeling like people were watching me, judging whether I was disabled enough. I started using my cane even on good days, not because I needed it, but because I wanted to look the part. I hated myself for that. I was performing my pain so people would believe me. That's not right. Amy told me later that Casey had been talking about the promotion constantly. She said Casey thought if she could prove I was faking, she would be the obvious choice for coordinator. She couldn't outshine me on merit, so she tried to destroy my credibility. I stayed at that job for another 6 months, but I never trusted anyone the same way. I still have the chronic pain, I still use my cane when I need to, and I still flinch when I see a car following me too close. That's the real cost of what Casey did, not the drama, not the HR meetings, but the fear. The feeling that someone is always watching, waiting to prove that you're not really suffering. People think disability has to look a certain way. They want dramatic limps, obvious braces, visible suffering. But most of us are just trying to get through our day. We walk into a garage without a cane because it's a good day, and we pay for it the next morning when we can't get out of bed. I wish Casey could have seen me the day after that oil change. I was a solid 8, couldn't stand for more than 5 minutes, took 3 ibuprofen and still felt like someone was driving a nail into my lower back. But she didn't record that. She only recorded what she wanted to see. That's the thing about invisible illnesses. People assume you're lying until you prove you're not, and then they still think you're exaggerating. You can't win, so you stop trying to explain. You just keep moving, one step at a time, even when it hurts. Let me tell you about another workplace nightmare. This one didn't involve canes or chronic pain. It involved a boss, a CEO, and a request so ridiculous I still can't believe it happened. I work at a company where the CEO loves one guy, Bob. Bob is the golden boy. When his wife had a baby and became a stay-at-home mom, the CEO thought that was the most admirable thing in the world. He promoted Bob on the spot. Never mind that Bob started showing up late, missing work, and sleeping at his desk. The CEO didn't care. Bob was a family man. Meanwhile, I'm the one they call the office mother. I've been here years. I haven't gotten a raise in 4 years. And when I had a baby, I got silently demoted. No explanation, no warning. Just a new job title with less responsibility and the same pay. Because apparently having a baby as a woman is a sin, but having a baby as a man is a promotion. Anyway, Bob moved across the country for a family emergency and got another promotion, then another. He went from being under me to my level to above me. Now he outranks me, and that's when the text came. It was a Monday morning. I was at my desk, coffee in hand, trying to mentally prepare for a meeting with the CEO, who I call Dick because he is one. My phone buzzed. It was Bob. "Hey, my wife, toddler, and dog need a place to stay for a week in January. Can you host them? If not, I'll ask the company to pay for my accommodations." I stared at the screen. I read it 3 times. He was asking me to house his entire family for a week for free, and he mentioned paying for his own hotel as an afterthought, like it was a burden. Gobsmacked. That's the only word for it. I texted back, "Sorry, that won't work for me." He didn't reply. But an hour later, I got a calendar invite from the CEO for a meeting that afternoon. I knew what it was about. I walked into the conference room. Dick was sitting at the head of the table, Bob on his laptop on the screen. Dick smiled. "Bob mentioned you weren't able to help with his family's housing situation. I was hoping we could find a solution. We value Bob's contributions here and we want to support him." I kept my voice calm. "I'm sorry, but I'm not in a position to host anyone for a week. I have my own family, my own space. It's not reasonable to ask that of an employee." Dick frowned. "Well, we were thinking of covering your utilities for that week as compensation." I nearly laughed. Cover my utilities for hosting a woman, a toddler, and a dog for 7 days? That wouldn't even cover the food and cleaning. I said no again. Bob made a comment about how in their culture people help each other out. I didn't bite, I just said I couldn't, and then Dick did something that made my blood boil. He turned to me and said, "You know, when you had your baby, we gave you time off. We were flexible. We expected that same team spirit in return." I felt my face go hot. "That was my paid leave. That's not a favor. That's the law." Dick waved his hand. "Let's not get into semantics." I left the meeting shaking. I went to HR. The HR rep looked at me like I was crazy. "He asked you to host his family? That's unusual, but it's not illegal. We'll have a word with him." A word, that was it. No disciplinary action, no apology. Bob's family ended up staying at a hotel. The company paid for it, of course, and I was left feeling like the bad guy for not opening my home. The worst part, a few weeks later I found out Bob had told other coworkers that I was not a team player and hard to work with. He was laying the groundwork to get me pushed out, so I updated my resume and started applying. I'm still there for now, but I'm not hosting anyone, and I'm not silent anymore. That story still makes me angry, but it's nothing compared to what happened with my coworker Connor. That one was more personal, more invasive. Connor and I worked together at a university. We were both in our 30s, both hated the same people, both had the same inside jokes. We were close, but we never hung out outside work. No texts after hours, no flirting. I asked about his wife and kids at least once a week. That's what normal coworkers do. One afternoon, a woman walked up to my desk. She was in her 40s, well-dressed, but her eyes were cold. "I need you to stop following my husband," she said. I blinked. "I'm sorry, what?" She leaned in. "Everyone can see what you're doing. You follow him around the office. You make excuses to talk to him. I know what you're after." Then it clicked. This was Connor's wife. I didn't know what to say. I just whispered, "I'm sorry." She walked away. I sat there, heart pounding. My coworker Kara came over and said, "Oh, you met the wife. She called me a few weeks ago asking about you. I told her you had nothing to worry about. She's mentally unstable, so don't take it personally." But I did take it personally. I stopped talking to Connor. I avoided his area. He tried to approach me once and I practically ran. I went to HR. I told them what happened but said I didn't want anything done. The HR rep already knew about the wife. She said, "We can have her banned from campus." I said no. I didn't want to embarrass Connor, but I was embarrassed. I felt like everyone was watching me, judging me. Some of them probably believed her. I couldn't even defend myself without looking guilty. Eventually, Connor sent me a message. "I'm sorry about my wife. She's been paranoid for years. I tried to tell her there's nothing going on, but she won't listen." I didn't reply. I couldn't because the damage was already done. I transferred departments a month later. I never spoke to Connor again. That's the thing about accusations like that. Even when they're false, they stick. People remember, they wonder, and you can't prove you're innocent when the accusation is so vague. I learned that the hard way, and I'm still learning. Speaking of learning, let me tell you what happened next with Bob, because that Monday meeting with Dick wasn't the end of it. That was just the beginning of a whole new level of absurdity. Day after the meeting, I got a text from Bob at 7:15 in the morning. "Hey, sorry about yesterday. Dick can be a bit much, but I really need help with my family. Could you at least watch the dog? My wife is overwhelmed with the toddler." I stared at my phone while my husband poured coffee. He saw my face and asked what was wrong. I read him the text. He said, "Tell him no again and block his number." But I didn't block him. I replied, "I can't watch a dog. I work full-time. I have my own pets. I'm sorry." Bob responded with a thumbs-up emoji. That was it. But then an hour later, I got a calendar invite from Dick for a team-building lunch the next day. I knew it was a trap. I showed up to the lunch at a restaurant near the office. It was just me, Dick, and Bob on speakerphone. Dick ordered a steak and a bottle of wine. He didn't ask what I wanted. He said, "I want to talk about culture. Bob mentioned you're not feeling the team spirit. I think you should reconsider hosting. We can make it a paid assignment." A paid assignment, like I was a hotel. I said, "I don't have a guest room. I have a couch. And a dog that doesn't like other dogs. It's not feasible." Dick waved his hand. "We can figure it out. Bob's wife is a great cook. She'll handle meals." I felt my jaw tight. "My house isn't a vacation rental. I have children. I have boundaries." Bob cut in. "I thought you were a family person. My wife just needs a safe place. We're paying for a hotel now, but it's not the same." I wanted to scream. Instead, I said, "I'm sorry you're in a tough spot, but I can't help." I stood up, put $20 on the table for my water, and left. That afternoon, I got an email from HR. Subject, Team Culture Concerns. It said my behavior was creating a hostile environment by refusing to support a colleague. I laughed out loud. Hostile environment. I was being asked to host a family. I replied with a simple, "I am not hosting anyone. Please document this refusal, that's all." The next week, Bob's wife and toddler and dog checked into a residence in 3 blocks from the office. I saw them once in the lobby when I stopped for coffee. The wife looked exhausted. The toddler was screaming. The dog was pulling on a leash. I felt a pang of guilt until I remembered that this wasn't my job. I wasn't the company concierge. A month later, I got a performance review. It was the worst one I'd ever had. Lack of collaboration and needs to improve team spirit. I knew it was retaliation. I took it to a lawyer. She said I had a case for constructive dismissal, but I didn't want to sue. I just wanted to leave. I updated my LinkedIn. I applied to 17 jobs. I got 3 interviews. One of them was with a competitor. I'm still waiting to hear back. The sad part is Bob is still the golden boy. He got a bonus for exceptional leadership in January. I didn't get a raise again. And I'm still the office mother, still the one people come to when they need something, still the one expected to give without receiving. But I'm done giving. I'm done being the safe space for everyone else's mess. I have my own family, my own home, my own boundaries, and I'm not hosting anyone ever again. That whole situation with Bob made me think about boundaries in a way I hadn't before, and it reminded me of what happened with Connor's wife, because that was a boundary violation of a completely different kind. After I transferred departments, I thought it was over, but Connor's wife didn't stop. She found my personal phone number, I still don't know how, and started texting me at night. The first one came at 11:47 p.m. on a Wednesday. "I know you're still seeing him. You think I don't know, but I do." I was in bed, half asleep. I read it and felt my stomach drop. I didn't reply, but they kept coming. "You're a homewrecker. Stay away from my husband." "I have proof." I showed my boyfriend. He wanted to call the police. I told him to wait. I blocked her number. Then she called from a different number. I answered by accident. She said, "I know where you live." That was when everything changed. I hung up and called the non-emergency police line. They said to document everything and get a no-contact order. I went to HR the next day. This time I didn't hold back, I told them everything. The texts, the phone calls, the accusation. The HR rep finally took it seriously. They gave Connor a formal warning about his wife's behavior and told him she was banned from campus. They also offered me a transfer to a different building. I took it. I moved my desk to the third floor of a building half a mile away. I didn't see Connor again for months. And when I did at a department-wide meeting, he looked right through me like I was a stranger. I heard later that his wife had bipolar disorder and had stopped taking her medication. I felt bad for him, but I also felt angry. He knew she had issues. He should have warned me or at least protected me from her. Instead, he stayed silent, hoping it would blow over. It didn't blow over, it blew up my career. I lost my network, my routine, my sense of safety. I still check over my shoulder when I walk to my car. I still feel guilty, even though I did nothing wrong. I guess that's the price of being a woman in a workplace. You get accused, you get doubted, and you have to prove your innocence to people who already made up their minds. And then there's Casey, my coworker who recorded me outside the oil change place. That whole saga still haunts me. After the police dismissed my report, I went back to work. I had to see Casey every day. She didn't apologize. She didn't even avoid me. She just acted like nothing happened. She'd walk past my desk and say, "Hey, can you send me that spreadsheet?" Like she hadn't followed me to a garage with a camera. I started recording every interaction. I kept a log. Date, time, what was said, what was done. I told my boss, Amy. Amy said she would handle it, but Casey was still there, still pushing, still trying to get a promotion that should have gone to her anyway. She saw me as a threat. One day, I got an email from Casey. "I think we should have a conversation off the record about your disability status." I replied with a link to the company's anti-discrimination policy and CC'd HR. She didn't email me again. But she started leaving notes on my desk, little yellow sticky notes with passive-aggressive comments. "Hope you feel better today. Saw you walking fine yesterday. Must be nice to have special treatment." I documented every single sticky note. I took photos. I added them to my log. I went to Amy again. This time, Amy called HR and Casey was given a written warning, but it didn't stop. Casey started talking to other coworkers. She told them I was faking my condition to get out of heavy lifting. She said I was playing the system. A few people believed her. They gave me looks. They whispered. I started wearing my cane even on good days just to shut them up. It hurt not physically, but emotionally. I was showing off my pain to prove I was worthy of empathy. That's a terrible thing to have to do. Finally, I filed a formal complaint with the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. That was 3 weeks ago. I haven't heard back yet, but at least there's a paper trail. Casey is still working here. She acts like nothing happened. But I know she's looking for a promotion, and I know she'll use anything she can to get it. I can't wait to leave this job. I can't wait to start fresh somewhere where no one knows my medical history, where no one follows me to a gas station with a camera. But until then, I keep moving, one step at a time, even when it hurts. And I keep reminding myself I am not crazy, I am not overreacting, I am surviving. And that's more than anyone can ask for. I filed the EEOC complaint on a Tuesday morning. I printed out all the sticky notes, the email threads, the timestamps from her following me to the oil change place. I even included the police report that went nowhere. I walked into the EEOC office downtown and handed over a folder that was almost 2 inches thick. The intake officer looked at me and said, "You've got a lot of documentation here. That's good." She scheduled a conference call for 3 weeks out. I didn't tell anyone at work. I didn't want Casey to know. She would have found a way to spin it, say I was a troublemaker, say I was exploiting the system, so I kept quiet. Every day I went to my desk, I put on a smile, and I pretended everything was normal. But I started checking my voicemail obsessively. I kept my phone on full volume. Every time my email notification pinged, my heart jumped. Meanwhile, Casey got a new title. Assistant Coordinator II. It was the promotion she'd wanted, but the job description was basically the same. She just got a few more responsibilities and a 3% raise. I was still Assistant Coordinator I, still eligible for the same promotion, but I'd never taken it because I didn't want full-time. But now it stung. She was getting rewarded for harassing me. I had lunch with Amy about a week later. We sat in the break room with sandwiches. Amy said, "I know this is hard. I'm sorry I can't do more." HR tied my hands. They said unless you file something official, I can't change her behavior. I said, "I did file something official." Amy's fork stopped midair. With the company, with the EEOC, Amy took a deep breath. "Oh, okay, then this is going to get messy." She was right. 2 weeks later, I got a letter from HR. They acknowledged the EEOC complaint and said they were launching an internal investigation. I was asked to not discuss the case with anyone at work. That same day, Casey was put on administrative leave. I saw her cleaning out her desk in the afternoon. She didn't look at me. She just took her picture of her dog and a small succulent and walked out. I felt a strange mix of relief and guilt. Part of me thought she's going to lose her job because she was cruel to me, and part of me thought she earned it. I reminded myself of the sticky notes, the comments in the break room, the phone call where she said, "I know you're faking." I held on to that. The investigation took 6 weeks. I had to give a formal recorded statement. I had to meet with a third-party investigator in a conference room. She asked detailed questions. "Did you ever feel physically threatened? Did Casey ever try to sabotage your work?" I answered yes to the sabotage. I told her about the time Casey had forgotten to include me in an important email chain and I almost missed a deadline. At the end of the investigation, HR concluded that Casey had violated company policy on harassment and discrimination. She was terminated. I got a memo saying they would also provide sensitivity training to the team. That was it. I sat at my desk after I read the memo. I didn't feel victorious. I felt empty. I thought about all the days I'd come home crying. All the times I'd worn my cane just to prove I was hurting. All the times I'd wondered if I was the crazy one. And now it was over, but the scars were still there. I still go to work every day. Casey is gone, but her ghost is still in the conference room where she used to talk behind my back. I'm thinking about leaving anyway. Maybe I'll find a job where no one knows my medical history, where I don't have to prove anything. But for now, I'm standing my ground. And I'm listening to my body. Some days I wake up at a level 6. Some days I wake up at a level 9 and I stay home. But I don't apologize for it anymore. I don't explain myself to people who don't want to understand, I just live. And then there was the Connor situation. That one didn't end with an investigation. It ended with a restraining order. After I moved buildings, I thought the texts would stop. They didn't. Connor's wife found my new work number. Someone must have given it to her. She called the main desk and asked to be transferred to me. I picked up, heard her voice, and hung up. I told security. They put a note on my file. She called a second time and security traced the number. They banned her from calling the campus switchboard. A week later, she showed up in the parking lot of the grocery store I go to near my house. I was buying milk and eggs. I came out to my car and saw her standing by the passenger door. She said, "I need to talk to you about Connor." I said, "I'm calling the police." And I did right there. She started crying, saying she was sorry. She just wanted me to understand. I didn't care. I held my phone up with 911 on the screen and said, "Leave or I'll press charges." She left. I went home and filed for a no-contact order. The judge granted it. Connor's wife never contacted me again. But Connor himself reached out a few weeks later. He found me on LinkedIn and sent a message that said, "I'm sorry for everything. I know you didn't deserve that. I'm getting help for her. I hope you're okay." I didn't reply. I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to scream at him for not protecting me. Part of me wanted to ask if he was okay. But I realized I didn't owe him anything. I had spent months feeling guilty for something I didn't do. And now I was done. I deleted the LinkedIn message and moved on. And lastly, the Office Mother saga. That one had a small update too. After I walked out of the meeting with Bob and Dick, I thought it was over. But Dick called me into his office 3 days later. He sat behind his big mahogany desk and said, "I'm concerned about the tension between you and Bob. You've been here longer. I expect you to be the bigger person." I said, "I am the bigger person. I'm not hosting his family." Dick sighed. "That's exactly what I mean. You're making this personal." It was personal when he asked me to host his wife and dog for a week without even asking how I felt about it. It was personal when you demoted me after I had a baby but promoted him for having one. Don't tell me to be the bigger person when you reward his entitlement. Dick's face went red. He didn't say anything for a long moment. Then he said, "I think you should take some personal time, clear your head." I took a week off. I didn't clear my head. I updated my resume. I sent applications. I got an interview at a nonprofit a few weeks later. I didn't get that job, but I got a second interview at a different company. That one went well. I'm waiting on an offer. Last I heard, Bob is still the golden boy. He got a parking spot closer to the door. I got a needs improvement on my review, but I'm not waiting for them to see my value. I'm taking it somewhere else. I still think about that meeting in the coffee shop. I think about how I stood up, put $20 on the table, and walked away. That was the moment I took my power back, and I haven't given it away since. So if you're reading this and you're feeling trapped in your job, or you're being asked to do things that aren't your responsibility, or someone is making you feel small, stand up, put your $20 on the table, and walk away. You don't have to be everyone's safety net. You don't have to be the office mother. You don't have to prove your pain to anyone. You just have to survive. And that's more than anyone can ask for. But there was one more thing I didn't tell you about the parking lot confrontation with Casey. After she got terminated, I thought I'd get some peace. But her husband, the one who'd driven her to the stakeout, started calling my office. He'd leave voicemails saying I ruined his wife's career, that I was a liar, that I'd regret it. I saved every single one. I filed a police report for harassment. The officer looked at me and said, "Ma'am, this is a workplace dispute, not a criminal matter. Can't do much unless he threatens you physically." I said, "He's already been involved in stalking me." The officer shrugged. I walked out of that station thinking, I'm black, I'm disabled, and I'm in Texas. Of course they don't take me seriously. The comment I saw online later said exactly that. OOP is black and is in Texas. Pretty much the only way cops in the South will take you less seriously is if they think you're an immigrant or if they think you're trans. That hit me hard because it was true. I'd spent my whole life trying to be respectable, to be polite, to not cause trouble. And here I was, trouble found me anyway. I deleted all the voice messages after the third police visit, not because I was afraid, but because I was tired. I had enough evidence. I didn't need to listen to his rage every night. My therapist said, "You don't have to carry other people's burdens. You